It's our pleasure to have Neil from Scanning Pens here this afternoon for our Thursday 30 session, the first one of this school year. Very excited to hear what you've got on offer for us this afternoon. So I will pass straight over to you, Neil. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you. So by way of introduction, obviously my name is Neil. I'm the Business Development Manager for Independent and Special Schools here at Scanning Pens. I've been here for 5 years, and obviously companies progressed and moved on with technology and helping various different types of students over all those times. I've actually moved. I was in the prison market over COVID, producing different pens from what you would see in our normal education setting. And that led me to working with the special schools and understanding how the pens would help those students hopefully not end up in the prison school to prison pipeline. So today I'm going to talk about hopefully using our pens within a special education needs environment, not just for in a mainstream school where you have students who have dyslexia. It's a lot different, obviously, when you're in a special school with different coexisting conditions, etc. So we'll talk about that a bit more. So first of all, for those of you who don't know, we are Scanning Pens. This is one of our boxes where our pens come in, and we do various different types of pens. This is the one I got into the prison market, and this is the pen that we're going to be talking about mostly today, which is our main reader pen. So what I'm going to do is go over to a presentation, talk a little bit about scanning pens, and then we're going to talk about those actual implementing and getting the pens and how they help in a special school environment. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen and move over to my presentation. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that, and I'm just going to go into the slideshow version. So welcome to the presentation. So I've already given you a slight introduction, but who are scanning pens themselves? So scanning pens aren't the devices, we are the company, and we are now the tried and tested company and trusted main supplier of scanning assistive pen technology into the education market, not just here in the UK. We are a very global company. We are a UK based company, and we replicate the successes and help that we offer to the schools in the UK around the world. So you can see there we have offices in America, USA, Australia, Canada, and we are now just opening up in Europe as well. And India is more of our back office support rather than actually implementing pens there. So why did scanning pens come about? So Jack, one of our founders, our CEO, was diagnosed with dyslexia when he was around 14. So when he left education, he wanted to help people like himself make sure that they were getting the support and help they needed to be with their peers and, you know, not be left out and to read the same sort of things as them. So we looked for the technology that was out there, and we found scanning pens, and we've developed and moved on from the original pens. So this is what we are now looking at. This is our main reader pen, and as you can see, it's a fairly simple device, and the idea being is it's one that you can just pick up and use straight away. It does have a built-in lithium-ion battery, and that battery will give you a good 8 hours of constant use once you've charged the battery up. So I'm not going to dwell too much on that picture, so we're going into more now about what are the main features, how these pens will support all different types of SEN students. So first things first, you can take it and use it straight away. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no connection to a computer, it doesn't need Bluetooth, and it can be charged via a USB. So idea being it's portable, it can be used anywhere. The pen reads out loud, that is its main feature. It's a text-to-speech device, and you can have headphones obviously to reduce distraction and to also have inclusivity, the pupil in class rather than being separated sort of thing. It promotes independence, it eliminates that reliance on human support, and hence why the journey, if you like, if you're using a reader pen in class, you can then use one of our exam readers for your exams, and you get that continuity. And if you have the pens it's personalized to yourself, then you can have it in the way you like it so that you're able to go straight into those scenarios. Obviously, it's a reading support, it's a digital bridge, if you like. We don't try to take over any of our lovely competitors who use digital text-to-speech. We're the bridge between the paper and the computer, basically. So it should help with productivity, reading fluency, giving more confidence, and this is all something that will be built up over time using the pen. So, as I've already said, it is a text-to-speech device, but what is really important is to get the message out there that using assistive technology is not cheating. It is supporting learners with issues with reading, being with their peers, be able to read the same books as their peers, be able to understand and learn at the same time as their peers. So you do have built-in dictionaries, and obviously that creates that instant access, so they're not having to go and find another dictionary to understand what that word means. You can actually click on the word, click on dictionary, and have the definition read out to you straight away. Now, some of our pens can't be used outside of the exam scenario, but you can lock the reader pen for internal assessments so that it goes into exam mode, so that then they're used to using the exam pen when it comes to exams. Okay, let's move on to a bit more of a different graphic, but explaining the same thing. How can our pens help? It develops enthusiasm in readers, it helps reluctant readers, and it helps support concentration. Now, with concentration, I'd like to talk more there about students with coexisting conditions, ASD, ADHD, sometimes having human contact so close, they don't like that. So it could actually give them that independence of being able to sit there, read something, understand it without having anyone else impeding them or right next to them. It should help develop, therefore, independence and confidence in their own learning, and again, read the same books as their peers, which I think is quite important. Now let's go a bit more in depth about different types of learning challenges in the CEN environment and how the pens can help with that. So self-esteem and confidence. The pen can break that cycle of dependency on a human reader or support of another student or a parent even. It gives them that immediate feedback. They can scan over and it's read out for them and hopefully they understand it. For those with sensory needs, you can change the voices and accents on our pens. You can therefore have a consistent voice. I've got my pen set to the Scottish accent because I quite like that. So when I'm having the demonstrating, it reads out in Scottish, and I can then have an exam pen set to Scottish if I was in an exam environment. That's my personal preference, but it can provide that constant voice and make it a lot better, for somebody going through that education journey, having the same voice reading for them all the time. Obviously, it's also multi-sensory. You can highlight, listen, see, track, review. All of those features are available on the pen because you can go back over the text, you can re-listen to it, you can highlight the word on screen and bring that up larger, and obviously you can get those dictionary definitions. So for weak literacy and undiagnosed dyslexia, obviously the reading, the text to speech is the main feature there, and the dictionary definitions on demand. But it also supports the processing, the memory, the reasoning, because you could go over, you can repeat, and the more you hear things, the more you understand it, sort of scenario. And again, that's the same for the English language learners. Obviously, it will help them with pronunciation, vocabulary development, and understanding those sort of things. So again, let's put that into a slightly different area. Now, there's some characters on this slide, and we'll talk about those characters a bit further on. But basically, what we're trying to identify here is different types of students. So ones with the neurodiverse differences or social, emotional, and mental health. It gives them that immediate feedback. They can scan, listen, get that feedback straight away. It therefore gives them that confidence, makes them feel a bit better. For those with ADHD, ASD, visual impairment, fatigue, you've got a multimodal seeing, hearing, tracking sort of option. So it's adding in that extra, giving that extra support. So again, going back to the dyslexia or mild learning disease, disorder, couldn't get my words out there, sorry. Again, reading, getting the dictionary definition, it gives you that processing, the memory, the decoding side of things. And developmental language disorder and other communications and interactions, it enables them to be in with their peers, therefore they have participation, they can provide a voice. So it's different areas for different types of SEND students. The pen can support all of that. We like to say that there's 4 main elements that the reader pen makes content accessible. So you can read, you can decode, you can transfer, and you can record. All of those options then obviously give you 4 different ways of making things accessible. All of these little extra features can be accessed through the running the wizard, and I'm going to talk through some of the settings of the pen shortly. So I just want to move on to how we help special schools and how we help other environments. So I mentioned earlier that I worked in the prison environment, and that prison environment was over the COVID period where we couldn't have anyone showing somebody how to use the pen. Now, obviously, if you have people with dyslexia or autism or ADHD and their reading isn't the best, having a pen that is in a text menu and a text user guide without anyone showing them how to use it, we had to come up with a way to, if you like, allow them to pick up the pen and set it up themselves and be able to use it without that support. So we created this 6-stage user guide, step-by-step picture guide, until we get to the last stage of how to set the pen up. So in theory, you can follow stage 1 through to stage 5. By then you've set the pen up on how you like it, and then you can practice using the pen on stage 6 to read those other instructions that we couldn't put into a picture-based part of it. So these are the sort of resources that we supply to all schools. This is actually on our website, it can be downloaded at any time. It's just, you know, helping implement that pen and getting it set up in people's hands. And that's what I want to talk about more now. When I'm dealing with my special schools, I say to the Senkos and support teachers that I'm training, don't give the pen to the student straight away. Sit with the student, talk to them and explain to them about what the pen does, and then ask them how they want it set up. I know that if you give a pen to a student with autism and they go to use it and it doesn't do what they're expecting, then you've lost them. They're not going to pick the pen back up and it's not going to be of interest to them. So you're going to need to set it up to their requirements. And by that, you need to look at things like our auto read feature or our word pause feature. And what I mean by that is our pens have a little nib on the end which activates the camera, but it also activates things like auto read. So if you're scanning a word and you've got auto read on, that's absolutely fine. You scan over and it reads that word out for you. If you need to scan multiple lines of text, you're going to need to turn auto read off, because as soon as you lift the pen off of the page, it's reading out that first line that you've scanned. That's going to confuse somebody if they're not expecting the pen to do that. So you turn auto read off, you can then scan multiple lines of text. The text will store on the display of our pen, and you use our little navigation up, down, left, right keys to go back up to the top, and then you manually press play and have that played back for you. So that student who needs multiple lines of text is then able to scan, hold the pen, activate the playback, and see and hear at the same time those words being read back to them. And if that's what the student's hoping for, that's what you're going to need to set so that when they first use it, it's actually doing that sort of process. And the other thing I mentioned, obviously, about you can change the accent, so that's a personal preference. You know, they may not have an accent themselves, however, they might prefer the sound of a different accent reading out the voice for them. So you could have a chat with them, you could change the accents and see which one they prefer. And if there is a specific one, then obviously you've set the pen up for that accent, and then they're away right from the start. Another option you can do is read delay. So you can actually put a delay on how long it takes to read out from when that little nib on the bottom of the pen is released. Now, this again could be any student, even if they don't need the multiple lines of text read out. So they've got auto read on, but they want to be able to see and hear that word read to them at the same time. I normally recommend you put a 1 second read delay on the pen so that you've got the opportunity for someone to scan a couple of words, hold, look at the pen, and it's then playing out and reading out what they've scanned over, so they can see and hear and get that comprehension side of things. And if you have students who would require more time in between each word to just comprehend and understand, then we do also have a word pause option, and you can set that anything between 1 and 5 seconds. I don't know why we've gone for 5 seconds. That is a very long time in between each word, but certainly you could have 1 or 2 seconds, and then obviously they can hear, see, comprehend, and then move on to the next one. So those are really the very important settings that I suggest that anyone who's going to introduce a pen into a CEN environment go through those sort of things first. Sit with the student, and obviously if you're sitting with them and getting them involved in setting that pen up, you're getting their excitement, you're getting them wanting to use it. And then obviously once they've started using it, if it's set up in the way they've gone through and talked with you about, then hopefully they're going to enjoy using it a lot more and maybe get over that little bit of stigma they may have. So those are very important things, and there's lots of other ways that you can make the pen quite inclusive within the class environment. Now, we know that not every school can afford to buy a pen per student, so you are able to plug our pens into a speaker instead of a headphone, so that you can have 2 or 3 students sat together going over text, one person scanning, everyone hearing, and then maybe passing the pen on to one of their fellow classmates, and they take it in turns to do that. And it just makes that difference. You can see here there's different types of speakers, different types of connections. I believe there are actually now cables with multiple connections, so you can have 2 or 3 sets of headphones connected to the one connection. And again, that means you could have everyone listening in at the same time. Now, we had some characters on screen earlier, and I said I was going to talk about them a bit later, and here they are again. So our lovely Julia Clouter, our head of education, has produced this Helping Hands Detective Agency storybook, if you like, and it helps implement the pens to a lower age group. So we're talking more like the end of primary, the start of secondary sort of age group here. And it's a storybook with different characters that have different traits. And the students will, hopefully recognize some of these traits as they're going through. So one of the characters has dyslexia, one has anxiety, one has autism, for instance. And each character has a different part within the book. And then that helps implement the use of the pen as we're going through that storybook. So again, this is just an example of resources that we will supply to help schools implement the pens. Now, we talked mainly about the reader pen, and obviously I mentioned that you can then go on to use our pens in exams. Now, the way JCQ have worded it is that as long as it's part of their normal way of working, then you don't need to apply for any accommodations. Now, obviously, I know in the CEN area, you probably still have lots of other accommodations you might have to apply for, but this is one less that you might not need to. And we even help with that. We've produced this way of recording normal way of working. It's literally something you can fill out, sign, and put into a folder. And if you then get audited at some point by JCQ or the examination boards you're using, then obviously you've got this normal way of working proof. So normal way of working and using our pens, that's really the main thing. We don't want schools just purchasing the exam pens because it saves them having human readers. We want schools to purchase the pens so that they're actually supporting the students, helping them on their development, helping them be included in class, making them feel like they're sat with their peers, and then obviously developing from there. So we try to encourage students to lead their own tutorials. This school here in the Holton district actually have what we call tech dudes, who basically help and show assistive technology to their peers. And this picture here, actually, they do have that device I mentioned, the multiple headset being plugged into the one pen, so that he can demonstrate and show all the other students. If you have student who's really enthusiastic of and using the pen, why not use them to help bring everyone else on board? Now, we've got quite a powerful message here now from a case study we did for a young girl called Millie. At first, Millie was quite resistant. Her confidence when reading was quite bad. So we helped her with obviously the support of supplying a pen. She only used it at home at first, but the school then commented on how the positive changes she had, how they could see she was getting more confident in her work, less reliant on staff to help her. And obviously that then led to her using the pen more in the classroom environment as well. I'm not going to read that whole slide. Obviously this will be available for people if they need a copy of it after. So I'm going to talk now a little bit more sort of like teacher talk, if you like. So these are the sort of expectations of where we see our pens support. So we don't expect people at level of key stage 2 to be doing everything that the pen can support, but it would give them that auditory support, that repetition. Then as you're moving into key stage 3, it will help with the language fluency and building vocabulary. As you're getting into the key stage 3 and 4, it can then help with accuracy, comprehension, and obviously so on up that scale, if you like. So the pens can be implemented and should be implemented really as low as key stage 2 if possible, just so that we can then build that confidence and that use of the pen as we're going through. Now, I was going to show a video, but unfortunately, I don't think the sound's going to work. So what I'm going to do is actually just drop a link into the chat. So if anyone wants to then see that video afterwards, then it would be available for them. And I've just noticed there is a message in the chat. So I'll just answer that for you as well. Can the reading speed be varied? Yes, is the very short answer to that. And in fact, we recommend that schools provide us with feedback, and we did have a school where the students who have ADHD already have digital readers on their computer, on their phones, and that particular student in this instance liked things to be read out to them a lot quicker than what our pens actually did, because apparently that's how they processed it and absorbed it. So based on that feedback, we have increased the speed. You can decrease, but you can also now increase over what you would normally consider what I would listen to, but for some students it is which they prefer. So again, it's all about setting that pen individually for that student and understanding what their requirements are. Do we have any other questions? No. Brilliant. Okay. If you joined at the very start, you might have heard that we were talking about different technologies, different pens. So watch this space. Scanning pens are producing new technologies all the time, and obviously trying to help as many students in different situations as possible. So obviously, if you're not already in contact with scanning pens, let us know if you have anything that you'd like us to do. We do offer 30-day trials for any schools, and you can trial both of our pens, the reader pen or the exam pen, and obviously go from there. And we just had another question. Does it read maths questions? That is a very good question. Now, our reader pen will read basic maths, but obviously when it comes to an exam environment, they're not allowed to have anything that can help them with understanding. So the exam pen will only read the text. It won't read any maths questions. So an answer to that is yes, if you need it to, but not when it comes to exams. But I'm afraid it only does the very basics. So it does the times plus divide. It won't start reading equations or algebra or things like that. But it will recognize the basic math symbols. So on the reader pen, if you go over the divide, it will read that out as divide. You're welcome. Any other questions? Brilliant. Well, I think we've just about got the half hour in there. I do recommend, especially as it is very pertinent to this sort of area, you have a look at this little YouTube video. I think it's only about 4 years old. It is in America, but it's in a very similar setting of somebody who obviously has gone into the workplace after going through a special school and having special education needs, and actually the pen helping them in their work as well. So to us, that is just, absolutely gold. So thank you very much for your time, everyone.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much, Neil. That was very enlightening, and yeah, lots to have a think about there. Thank you very, very much, and thanks everyone for joining. Enjoy your evenings.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.